The first whiskey is the open limited edition, and you can see Colin's signature is on here. I think you have a bottle, Colin. Excellent.
I do indeed.
See, we just got, yeah, most people get
it's
a
always,
small miniature.
It's always with me, David. It's always with me.
And Colin and I met briefly in 2018 when he came to Loch Lomond Distillery, and he met with our master distiller, Michael Henry, and they locked themselves in a room and talked whiskey for a while and many other things, I believe. And the outcome of that meeting was the open edition. And it's a very light, fruit-driven style of whiskey. It's unpeated. It's almost like an aperitif style. You know, it's got lots of energy, and it's a very sweet, fruit-driven whiskey. I think that's the style that you like, Colin. That tends to be the sort of style that you go for.
Indeed. I like the sweetness and the fruitiness of it. So I'm just going to raise a glass to you all now in Sweden and who's ever listening here and saying cheers to everybody. And this is my first of many this evening. Thank God I'm not driving. But cheers to everybody and enjoy.
We get a lot of questions about water in whiskey. Before we test them, or as we test them, what would your advice be on having water in whiskey, in these whiskies?
My advice would be is try it neat first, and then see if it needs some water. I think a lot of whiskies benefit from a splash of water because it really opens up and releases the flavors, and you get a wider range of flavors, a more depth of flavor when you dilute it and add a little water. But I would always say try it neat first, because some whiskies benefit from water, some don't, and also whiskey's personal. So some people, like it with water, some don't. So I would say try it neat and decide if you think it needs a splash of water, and sometimes that can really open up the flavors. But what you would typically do on a tasting is you would start with the lighter whiskies that are unpeated, and then you would move towards the peated whiskies at the end, because if you have the peated whiskey first, it's difficult to lose the taste. It's difficult to lose the flavor in your mouth. So when you have a peated whiskey first, most of the whiskies after that will taste a little bit smoky or peaty, not because they are, but because you haven't really been able to cleanse your palate properly. So we tend to work up to the more heavily peated ones. And I've had a really, really peaty whiskey before, and you can almost taste it the next day as well, that kind of really peaty flavour. So that's why we would typically structure it in that way. What we have at Loch Lomond is we have different types of still, so we have different shapes. So simply put, if you have a short squat still, it can create a heavier style whiskey like a Macallan. If you have a tall, thin, narrow still, it creates a lighter style whiskey like Glenmorangie, as an example. And one's not better than the other, they're just different. And using different shaped stills creates a different flavour. That's it. And at Loch Lomond, we have both of those types of stills. So what we can do is we can distill the spirit in those stills, mature it separately for 21 years, as we do the 21-year-old, and then sort of bring those different styles of spirit together to get that lovely balance and that subtlety that we're looking for. And that's something that Loch Lomond has in its toolkit, and I think that's how we can create these whiskies that are complex and characterful and rich and balanced, but not one-dimensional, not overpowering in certain areas, but just lovely and balanced.
What would you recommend as a Christmas present for someone?
We've got a Loch Lomond 15-year-old in Systembolaget, and we've just actually we've reduced the price a little bit, and in terms of value for money. The 15-year-old is unbelievable, and so I would do that, and I think it's an outstanding product as well. So, I mean, Cecilia, you and I do a few tastings, from time to time, and that tends to be one of the ones that's near the top of the vote at the end of the night. So I would say the 15-year-old is amazing, and I think because of that price reduction, I think it's huge value for money. To be honest.
Could you the price range on the 15-year-old at Systembolaget? What would be the price range of that?
It's
$399, Cecilia? Is it $399?
Correct, $399.
It's
a very good price for a 15-year-old.
For a 15-year-old, I mean, I think there's probably people that are watching that are part of the, they understand. And what happened was that there was quite a few products at that age that were sort of coming in at a good price. So we wanted to be competitive with them. But as a product, I think the 15-year-old is outstanding. And to be offered at that price, I think is, yeah, I mean, I would say that's a pretty good gift, Cecilia. Yeah.
Any whiskey advice you have, you would like to share with the audience tonight?
Quite a few years ago, a lot of the age statements started coming off, been taken off the bottles in single malt. And I think, well, that because the demand was far ahead of supply, as the popularity of single malts increased dramatically. And that was a difficult time for the industry, but it forced producers to think a little bit differently and not just about age, but wood quality, different types of wood, different distillation techniques, fermentation time, cut points, all these different things to create, different styles and flavors of whiskey. And I think it really forced a lot of innovation in the industry, which is good, and something that the Scotch industry has been criticised for not doing enough. And I think whereas you would used to go into a store and it was all defined, being in stores that are, all the 12-year-olds are here, all the 10-year-olds are here, and that there's much more to whiskey than just age. So I think what I would say is age is an indicator of quality, but it's not a guarantee. And I would look beyond that, and try younger whiskies, age statement whiskies. We spoke about this, for example, and sort of a large proportion of the whiskies in here are 10 years old, and there's no age statement on it, but it doesn't mean there's not older whiskies in there. And also, we spoke about wanting that peat level, so younger whiskies will showcase that better. So not just be driven by age statement. And the whiskies in here, again, there's no age statement on there, but the whiskies in here are sort of 8 to 12 years old. So there's just, I think, be open-minded and don't just choose based on age. And I'm speaking to a very educated audience in Sweden generally, so I think that everyone's going, yeah, I know, and that's probably the case. But I think that we shouldn't just think about age statements. So there's much more to whiskies, and there's many more things drive flavour than just age. So I would say that would be my advice: is look beyond age statements and explore flavour creation beyond age.
Yes, what will come out from Loch Lomond in the future? Any news?
Yes, there is. And I meant to mention it earlier, and I was kicking myself, so thanks for the question. The first two things that are coming out at the beginning of next year are the 2021 golf limited, open limited golf editions. So we have a 2021 open edition, which will be the 2021 version of this, to commemorate the Open Championship at Royal St George next year. And we'll have a 2021 version of the course collection, the Open Course Collection, commemorating the tournament in Royal St George next year. And just one sneak preview is that because the tournament is in England, the Royal St George Open Course Collection has been further matured in English oak, which is amazing, and that creates a really unique style of product. So in the way that we developed a product inspired by the claret jug, we've now created a product for Royal St George inspired by the location, and using English oak. So that's a little bit of a sneak preview as well. So those two products are coming for Loch Lomond.